Is the family a patriarchal structure? Well, I don't know, maybe. Well, no, upon consideration over many years, here's a counter argument, but it's not like you can just generate that on the fly. And so, you know, we fall prey to these casual critiques in some sense, but they're less casual than our ability to articulate our, you know, implicit beliefs. And so we get caught out all the time. Technological transformation makes us uncertain of who we are, and partly by providing us with more freedom. And then answers arise to the questions that are driven by that, and we have a hard time making philosophical sense of them or defending ourselves against them. You know, I've been trying to think through this idea that human social institutions are fundamentally predicated on the arbitrary expression of power. It's like, well, yeah, sort of, but wait, no, no, fundamentally that's wrong. But it's not like it's simple to think through, and we can return to that later. So
Heather, before Francis moves on to the next little bit, I was going to ask you, is the family a patriarchal structure?
I don't see it that way. And there are compelling arguments in evolutionary biology space as to, you know, how it is that males wield power in the outside world more often in a nuclear family situation than females do. But there's a question then of what your definition of power is. You know, and this will seem like we quickly fall into a semantic trap, but it's, you know, if you're going to argue, you know, patriarchy is about power. That is what, you know, patriarchal refers to. So you have to define power. And if women tend to have power within the family, within social systems, women tend to engage in hierarchies in which the competition is more covert. Men tend to engage in competition and hierarchies that's more overt. And so, you know, that is the power that is more overt. More overt, of course it is, ipso facto, right? You can point to it and say, well, that's where the power is. But the power that women tend to yield, being more cryptic, being more covert, and, you know, that's partially because we are sexually dimorphic. We do have some history of, at least, you know, some history of polygamy in our past, such that men are on average bigger and stronger in all of this. And so in engagement between the sexes, women aren't going to use power, aren't going to use physical power. That wouldn't make any sense. That would be a losing move. And so once you start down that road, where women are going to be more likely to be able to compete on something like an even playing field if they're going to be using psychological or social tools as opposed to physical tools when engaging with men, then also you expect, and we see there's plenty of evidence in the psychological literature as to, you know, the kinds of competition that women engage in being more covert. So all of that is sort of a background answer to, you know, is the system we live in patriarchal? Only if the only kind of power you're interested in is the overt expressions of power, especially raw physical power.
It's also whether or not you think that the fundamental principle that structures social organizations is in fact the expression of power. And it's not. That's just wrong, I believe. I think it's antithetical to the truth.
What do you think it is?
Well, if you look even at primates like chimps, and chimps are a lot more violent. The males are a lot more violent than human males, at least reactively. And their structure and their social structures are more vicious and violent than human social structures. The alpha male, so to speak, the top chimp, is constantly engaged in grooming and reconciliation, and in stable chimp societies attends to the needs of the females and the infants to a large degree. And so what DeWall has demonstrated quite nicely is that even among chimpanzees, social structures predicated on the arbitrary expression of power, which we could define as the use of force to compel others to act against their wishes, let's say, or against their intrinsic desires, produces very unstable social hierarchies that are ripe for revolution. And the chimps that rule for a long time are markedly cooperative. Now, they're still capable of exerting force, but force isn't the animating principle of the society, which is the claim that, you know, that social relations among humans are predicated on power. That's the claim. Unless we weasel out of the definition of power,
No,
Power is when I get you to do something you don't want to do or else. And that's not the basis for human social institutions. It's an aberration. And people who use power to obtain and maintain their positions are, by and large, incompetent.
I agree. Yep. I think that's exactly right. And just exactly as you say, alpha males are not brutes in non-human primates, and in human primates where the systems are functional. There may be other males who are brutes, but it's not the alpha. Alphas use affiliative behaviors and conciliatory behaviors and cooperation to accrue loyalty, which then is a way of maintaining power. And that's only sort of in male hierarchy space. And of course, what I think one of the modern problems that we are experiencing is male hierarchies and female hierarchies both exist. They follow different rules. There are different rules of engagement. It's a very rare species that actually has both, because typically in other species, one or the other sex disperses, and you also don't have multiple males and multiple females in a group together. Baboons being an interesting exception to that. But for us, we've combined. We now live in this attempting to be egalitarian world where we've got this, call it 6 million years since we split with the ancestors of bonobos and chimps. 6 million years of evolution within our particular lineage, in which we've got female hierarchical relationships and male hierarchical relationships. And now, I don't know, post-industrial, something since at least agriculture. So at a maximum 10,000 years old, we're combining these two hierarchies, and we're pretending it's just going to be easy and fine. And we have to figure it out. Like, we have to figure out how to work together. But imagining that we're just going to default into male style of hierarchy and it's going to be cool with all the women, or that we're going to just default into female style of hierarchy and it's going to be cool with all the men, is an amazing error. And in fact, what I feel like we see is this like pendulum swing from, well, we were just doing it the male way because women came into sort of the external realizations of power later, and that wasn't really working for everyone. And at the moment, we're seeing this pendulum swing over into really female styles of dominance relationship, and it's equally dysfunctional. It's just something we don't have as much history with recognizing, but that doesn't make it any better. This idea the future is female. No, the future is all of us.